Let's first meet Toby Shanley. Hi, Toby. How are you, mate?
G'day, Nick. Yeah, I'm good.
Where are you from? Whereabouts are we hearing from you for those who don't know you personally?
So I'm in Taranaki, just near a little town called Oakura.
And what are you doing there at the moment? So give us a bit of info of what you're doing now and where you basically came from to be in that space.
Yeah, so I grew up here and kind of got into this line of work through studying ecology and then working on a number of predator-free islands up off the northern coast of the North Island. Yeah, and that's what got me interested in conservation work and yeah, just seeing what was possible when you remove all the predators from a place. So that's what I've made my job for the last few years.
It's all yours.
Thanks, Nick. All right, so start off, we're just going to focus a little bit on why we're doing this work up here. The whole project is about restoring the bush and the wildlife of our region. That's the main focus. That's why we are removing predators. We know that removing predators is the best way to restore our native wildlife. They have a massive impact on all of the native wildlife and the condition of our bush. So the main focus of this project, we always go back to the wildlife and native species impacts that we can have. The predators that we're targeting is really the big three that all the predator-free projects are targeting, which is stoats, rats, and possums. But we also have in our project targeted the other mustelids as well, which are ferrets and weasels. So that's the focus, and we're targeting those species in different ways in different areas to get different outcomes. So I'll go into a bit more on that as well. So a project overview, on the left-hand side there, we have the project footprint, which is really based on the large-scale possum control program that the Taranaki Regional Council has been undertaking for a long time now. So that's really the building block that we're building on top of. You can see on the right-hand side there a bit of just a recent map on sort of where we're at now. So I'll go into a bit more detail about that, but it shows those are all traps. Every red dot there is a trap. So what you can see, we're having quite an impact across a large swathe of the region. So just clicking onto the next slide, we'll go into the four main parts of the project. So we've got an urban part of the project, which has kicked off in New Plymouth and is focused on New Plymouth for the first year, and we are just starting to expand that now, expanding into Waitara and some other small towns around the region. So eventually that urban project will cover all urban centres within the project footprint that you can see. That's those coloured bits on the map. So the urban project is mainly focused on rat control in people's backyards, and also possum control if there's possum habitat on your property. We've set up huge networks through public reserves through New Plymouth, and then really encouraging all the private properties sort of in between to fill in those gaps, so that we've got a really good network of control happening throughout the city. And the aim for that project is to have one household in every 5 that's active in trapping predators. So that could be one trap, it could be a few traps if it's a bigger property. So, and we're really, the numbers of traps that we've got out there now, we're starting to surpass that number. So that's really good. In terms of our rural predator control project, so that's the coloured parts of the map, and the numbers are a little bit small. You might not be able to see, but they're numbered off 1 to 10. So that's a 10-year project to cover off all those coloured pieces of the puzzle of the region. So and like I said before, that's building on the possum control. It's called the Self-Help Possum Control Program, which has been going for over 20 years and means that we can keep possum numbers low within that whole area. So as you can see in the middle there, the Taranaki Mounga project, that's on the national park. So we're also really rolling out this control around the mountain so that we're protecting species that are being reintroduced and other species that are breeding up and starting to spill out of the national park. So that rural project is based on mustelid control. So that's the stoats, ferrets and weasels, and it's covering all that rural land, so predominantly farmland throughout that whole area. And like I said, covers from 1 to 10, and I'll go into a bit more detail about how we're doing that later on. Then up in the sort of the most northern part of the national park, we have the Zero Possum project, which is focused on the Kaitake range, and that's the new part of this project. Really, that's the exciting part. That's where we're trying to eradicate possums from that range and from the land surrounding it. So I'll go into a bit more detail of that next. And then the part of the project that sort of covers all of those three sections is the research and monitoring, which there's a lot going on in that space as well. So I'll touch on a few little interesting bits from that. So moving on to the Zero Possum area. So this is now focused in on a map focused in on the Kaitake range. So we've got 2,300 hectares of the Kaitake range, which is part of the national park, and then 2,000 hectares of mostly private land down to the coast, and also including Oakura Town. So a really complex project covering all those different areas. So we have to have different sort of strategies for each part of that project. Right, just clicking on to the next. So to protect that area, so we have natural boundaries on the sides, because we have rivers running down the sides of the project area, and they provide a natural barrier to slow possum incursion back into that area. But we also have a strip of forest that is kind of like the main highway for possums to reinvade our area. So when we were designing the project, we realised that we have to close and have to make a barrier through that area. Otherwise, possums are just going to freely reinvade the area that we've cleared them from. So that's where we went to ZIP, Zero Invasive Predators, to see if they could provide a solution for this, and we came up with this idea of a virtual trap barrier. So that is based on 4 main lines of traps, which you should be able to see the dotted lines on that map if you look closely. Those lines have a trap, raised leg hold trap every 10 meters. So it's a really, really dense trap network through there. And the idea is that any possum that's trying to cross through those lines of traps will easily come across one and will hopefully get caught before it gets in. So the way that works is when the possum gets caught in that leg hold trap, they're remote reporting, so we don't have to have someone out there checking all these traps every day. We can check a web page in the morning to see which of any of these traps have gone off, and we know exactly which trap to go to if there's one that's gone off. So that's our barrier for possums reinvading through to the Kaitake. So we've had to do different things from the national park into town. We've been running a public campaign in Oakura Town so that we can make use of anyone who's seeing possum sign or hearing possums at night. We're getting the word out that we really want to know about that, because that's really, really valuable intel for us to target those possums. So we've got an 0800 number for people to call, and then we can follow those up straight away. And we've also had support from local business. We've had the local surf shop giving out wax tags so people can put them in their backyards to check if they have any possums around, and had flyers at all the other businesses. So yeah, that's really helping. We also set up an online possum report webpage, so that can be accessed just through the regional council website, so that people can just upload a photo or a sighting or anything if they suspect that there's a possum in that area. And so once we get to help us get to down to picking up those last possums, we're in the midst of installing what we call a lean detection network. So that's based on the same raised leg hold technology that zero invasive predators have provided. So these traps are spaced out a lot more than in the barrier, but once the possum numbers are low enough, the possums will be moving around enough that this trap density should pick them up. So this will help us get to eradication, and it will also stay in place and be our sort of detection network for any invading possums. So possum detection dogs are also going to be a big part of this. We're not quite at that stage yet, but we're getting really close now. So they're going to be our most sensitive tool for picking up those last possums, and they'll be used alongside all the cameras that we use as well to track down and to confirm that once we don't have any possums left. So I also got to give a shout out to the Kaitake Rangers Conservation Trust, a really active group of volunteers who are working in this area as well, and they're maintaining a huge amount of trapping through this area. So just one of a huge number of community groups which are springing up all over our region, as they are all over the country. So yeah, everything's been put on hold, but I know these guys are itching to get back out there and do the good work that they've been doing for the last few years. So moving on to the rural part of our project, this map here shows the first year area, which was chosen because it runs from the Mounga down to the city. So there's potential for wildlife to move along that corridor backwards and forwards. So the mustelid control we decided on is based on two types of traps. The box traps that a lot of you will be familiar with, DOC 250s and DOC 200s. And also the A24, which is the mix of traps that we've gone for in this zone. They both have sort of remote reporting capability. The A24 based on the Bluetooth cap that Good Nature has developed, the chirp cap, so that allows landowners to go alongside the trap and pick up what catch data they can from the cap. And in the DOC 200s and DOC 250s, we're using Eco Node, so that's a little electronic node which sits in the traps and gives notifications of when the trap's gone off. So this is all based on trying to cut down the labour that's needed to check these traps, so that if we've got a long life lure in the trap and the trap hasn't gone off, the landowner's not having to go there to service that. So this whole rural control project is set up and installed by contractors that the project employs, and they run a knockdown sort of phase After that phase is done, we hand over maintenance of these traps to the landowners, and we've had amazing buy-in from the landowners here. Over 90% of people have said, yep, they're keen to continue checking these traps once we get them on, so that's awesome. So there's a lot of new technology we're using in this space, and things are just improving all the time. So these are a few screenshots from an app called TrapNZ that some of you may be familiar with. So we've really ramped up our use of that, and just getting into training everyone so that we can have robust catch data on all of this as well. And the one on the far right hand side is a little screenshot of what you get on your phone from using the chirp cap. So you can see how much gas and lure you've got and how many kills those traps have done. So this is what the first year looked like once all the traps were installed. So that's 2019 traps through that area. So yeah, having a massive knockdown on the predators in that area. And then so after year one, we're just now at the end of year two, which is completing a sort of ring of protection right around the national park. So that's going to protect all those species that start spilling out from the park, and we're already seeing that with the Fio coming down the rivers, and kiwi starting to be spotted in some farmland, which is really exciting stuff. So the urban project, so I've already talked a bit about the aims of the urban project. The real success story of the urban project has been schools' involvement. So we've been helping schools to distribute traps, just providing them for free. The trap kit that you can see down the bottom there, the bag, the trap tunnel, the trap, a bit of information, and a letterbox sticker. We provide those to the schools, and they have been selling them to their communities and selling them for $10 for their kit, and keeping the profits as a fundraiser, and that's worked amazingly well. It's really helped us get a whole heap of traps out to the community really quickly. So got a couple of slides here which are slightly outdated now, but they show the progress over our first year. So this was kind of where we were at the very beginning of the project, and as I click through the slides, you'll see the numbers of traps just really exploding over the city, and we've just clicked over 10,000 traps that have gone through our depot out to that urban project. So yeah, things are still ramping up and looking really good, and there's just more and more people getting on board, so it's fantastic. I've got just a couple of early results from sort of our first year, showing the rat numbers starting to decline. We weren't able to do our tracking this April yet because of lockdown, so we'll hopefully get out there in the next few weeks and see what the result is for this year. So that's yeah, rat numbers decreasing from the beginning of our urban project, and also possum numbers going back a little bit further because we'd already started to do large scale possum control in New Plymouth, but yeah, starting off at about 25% and down to 1.4 now, so looking really good. So you may or may not be able to hear that, but that's a robin, a totowai, calling out at a place called Pukeiti, which is owned by the regional councils, but sits between, sort of right in the middle of the national park, really. So that's one of the outcomes from this project, where this birdsong robins had been lost from the national park for over 100 years. And they're now starting to spread out through the national park and into other areas as well. So there's a map of just showing how far these robin have come. So they were reintroduced on the eastern side of the main Mounga, and they've travelled. This little one had travelled over 13 k's to get to where I recorded that video, and that's, yeah, it's really special to start hearing that as part of the bird song back in these areas where it's been lost, and yeah, they're spreading out quite quickly. So I put another little video in as well. You can play that one. So this is a grey-faced petrel, which again, they pretty much been lost from the whole of the region, apart from one small little colony which survived up in North Taranaki, and these guys are now starting to expand back into areas and looking for places to nest back around. This one was just down the road from where I live. So yeah, this is the real potential of these kind of projects. I think we're going to start seeing a whole lot of these things, and normally a bird like that just turning up and walking around on a road would probably get snaffled up pretty quickly by a predator. So all this predator control just means that these things can start coming back and breeding again. So we've also seen the same thing with kiwi. Kiwi have been reintroduced to the Mounga and are now starting to expand their range, and we've had multiple reports from areas near the Kaitake range of kiwis turning up on the edges of paddocks and farmland and things. So this is really exciting stuff as well. So just a quick little update on some of the research that we've been undertaking with Manaaki Whenua land care research. So we've got some stoat tracking projects happening just to try and track stoats through farmland, because we really need to know what habitats they're using, and so that we can target them more efficiently. That's just a little map on some of the stoat tracking that's being done on the western side of the mountain. And also we've been doing some possum collaring to work out possum home ranges as well. So these are some examples of the data that we get back once we retrieve the collars off those possums. You can see some of them are really covering a massive amount of distance. Other ones, like the one on the left there, pretty much on one property that possum lives. So yeah, that's some really good intel for us for working out how to target these animals. And that's it.
The first question would be, have you got any tips to how you brought the landowners on board? It seems that you've done pretty well in that area.
Yeah, I guess in the rural area, it's been a really long process. The regional councils here have been working on it for over 20 years in terms of that pest control. So that possum project that I talked about, we have regional council officers who are in touch with those landowners every year, just seeing how they're going, helping them, giving them advice. So yeah, I think it would be a different story if we were kind of starting from scratch, but because we're building on that successful program already, that's been a massive help for us.
David's asked, so how many traps or devices are out there in total?
How many traps are out? I think on that initial map I showed, there's about 8,000 on there. So, but those are just the ones that are recorded on the TrapNZ website. So we know that we've distributed a lot more through the urban project, which people are using, but not necessarily recording the data. So yeah, we're encouraging everyone to record as much as they can, because it's really helpful for us to see the progress if we can, and we can report on things, and we can do different things if we have that data. But it's not everyone's cup of tea. Some people just want to trap and yeah, they just want to use the trap and not do the data part of it.
So I've got a few questions I'm going to run that we got earlier on in the presentation. And if there's any glitching in the video, everyone, that's just sort of individual internet speeds. So just bear with us, if you will. There's nothing wrong with Toby, he's fine. How do you install a leg hold trap in a tree, and what makes them stand on it?
So those leg hold traps are set up on a specially designed platform that Zero Invasive Predators has designed, and that platform screws to the tree but then has a wooden board, wooden ramp running up to it. So and then it has a visual lure set up above it. So the possum's coming along, it sees the ramp, which also acts as a bit of a visual lure, and it also sees the lure up above. And they're really curious animals, so they hop up the ramp, and when they go to inspect the lure, it's designed that their back leg will step on the trap treadle, and then they'll be caught. Then there's a length of chain there so that they can hop off that platform, which they normally do if they're caught, and they can get to the ground, and then they'll be stuck there on the ground until someone comes along.
Another one here from Adam. What long life lures are you using?
So we're trying sort of anything new that comes out. We still haven't found anything that's really kind of getting to the level where we want. I mean, we'd love to have something that could sit there for 6 months and do the job, but we're using in the A24s anyway, we're using the auto lure pumps, which seem to go pretty good for about 4 months, and then I think they need to be checked after that. But in terms of in the box traps, we're mainly using the traditional baits because we're getting better results from them. So salted rabbit and eggs, and trying some of these new synthetic lures, but we haven't cracked it yet. We're still trying everything that comes out, every new thing that comes out.
How do you ensure that the traps that go out through the schools are used? Do you register the traps somehow?
We put a info sheet in there so that they can be registered on TrapNZ, but like I said, we thought it more important that we just get the traps out there and then trying to make it too sort of requiring people to register them. So we're just encouraging it, and a lot of people are. And I think it kind of gets to a sort of tipping point when most people are registering and they can see that all their neighbours are doing it, then you get better buy-in. But yeah, we're not making it a requirement of the trap sale. We just want people to be catching rats, because that's the main thing.
And have you found any tips you could give us on dealing with schools? Is it, for instance, important that you find a teacher that is into it like you are? What would you say?
That's the ideal. The ideal is to find a teacher within the school who's passionate, and then they can sort of make it their project. And that's worked well. And generally, there's one or more teachers that are into this, and they can sort of get a group of kids who are really into it too, and that works really well. And a lot of the schools here have a bit of bush at the back of the school. There's a lot of schools like that in New Plymouth, and they can really take on this project and apply it to their own backyard as well, which works really well.
Rick's asked, do you work with Enviro schools?
Yeah, we do. Yep. So we have really close involvement with Enviro schools throughout the region, and we also have an educator who works for the regional council who does an awesome job, and so our team and her and the Enviro schools, we're all working sort of towards the same goal and helping each other out.
Kari's just written something I've just seen saying how you're measuring success. Are you doing small bird surveys, kiwi call surveys, grey petrel counts? How are you going about it?
Yeah, we've got a lot of it's based on 5-minute bird counts. So we do a huge amount of 5-minute bird counts, and then we also do monitoring with cameras and with tracking tunnels. So yeah, but then I guess those more site-specific things like kiwi and grey-faced petrels, we we don't sort of do across the board monitoring of that, but if we get a report, then we'll follow up and make sure that we find out what's going on there as well.
There's one here from Helen who asks quite a specific question. What possum traps can we use in urban backyards where possums are destroying fruit, etc., and they don't want to catch local pets, of course?
One that's a good one is the Possum Master, which we do sell to people in urban areas. Just they can be set up on a tree, so pretty much vertically, and baited with fruit, and that's really would be really rare for that setup to catch any pets. It's making the trap just accessible to possums, really.
Here's a very, very specific question which I can't remember. Just somebody asked, what was in the picture to the right of the kiwi? Does that make any sense?
Oh yeah, sorry. I was kind of whipping through the slides there at the end. That was some kiwi footprints that we recorded. So one of those circles on that map was where that photo was taken of some kiwi footprints along a muddy track, which was one of the ways that we knew there were kiwi there. And we also had multiple reports from landowners in that area saying they'd seen kiwi as well. So it all added up.
Very well spotted, the person that said that. And just remember, everybody, we do record this whole webinar, and then we package it and put it back on our site, and we send you a link. I think that's how we do it, just so that you can share it, which is good. Have you had any help from Osprey in financial and in encouraging farmers?
We have worked with them in the past, yeah. So we haven't had financial assistance lately that I'm aware of, but yeah, they have helped in the past.
Here's one from Kari, says, can you tell us a little more about the stoat telemetry results? Any top tips for where or how they travel?
Yeah, it's pretty early in that project at the moment. We don't have a huge amount of data to sort of look at yet, but what we have seen in our initial results are that they seem to be spending pretty well most of their time in bush fragments, and then sort of just taking a direct line across farmland to get to another bush fragment. So yeah, that's probably going to help us with targeting them as well. We'll put our traps where that habitat is, because that's your best chance of getting them.
I see Margaret from Predator Free New Zealand Trust has reminded me that all of the webinars, thank you Margaret, are on our web page. So you go there and then you can link into them, all the previous ones, including this one, which will be up probably by tomorrow. Here's one. Actually, the question really is A24s, how are they working for you? Because this person says they are not getting probably they're not getting the results they were hoping for.
Yeah, they seem to work pretty well. We're doing a bit of a trial with cameras on them, which we haven't looked at that data yet. We just we check that we're getting interactions from stoats, that they're actually getting killed by them. So we might have some more to say on that once we've analysed all that camera data. But it's a bit of a, I mean, we're looking at it from the point of view of landowners as well, in terms of we need people to buy into this, and we need traps that are going to work for landowners. So when we're talking with landowners, we're giving them options. We're saying you could have these traps in this area where it's easy to get to, and maybe these bits over here we should put some self-resetting traps, and that seems to work for a lot of people. So yeah, it's a bit of a I guess we're just working with what works for people as well.
I just want to ask you a question from me to you. The people around you, you have your lovely volunteers with 10,000 traps now, up to that in your urban spaces. What sort of team do you need to keep these people active and inspired? So who have you got around you that you think is a good tip for all of us?
I guess you need, there's our project team, which and we've got an urban project lead who does an awesome job, as well as the educator that works for the regional council that I mentioned as well. She's really doing an awesome job, but you really need leaders within the community as well, I think. It's too big for just our small team to be doing everything. So we really do rely on sort of community volunteer leaders as well, and they do a massive amount of just that admin behind the scenes stuff and helping extra people get involved and spreading the word. So yeah, that's a big part of the Predator Free movement, I guess, is those people out in the community who are just volunteering their time to help people get set up or spreading the word, because it's too big a job just for our team to do.
That's right, because Marcy was just asking, how big is your team?
Yeah, it's really only, well, I guess it's kind of complicated because there's the regional council team, which is me and 3 others that are working solely on this team, but then we have our wider team that give us support as well, and then we also have the Taranaki Mounga project. So they're a separate organisation, but we're working on the same project as well. So it does get quite mixed, and then all the volunteers and everything. So it sounds like a small team from our organisation, but we're part of a much wider community doing this work.
And do you have any sort of tips on the best way to communicate? Do you do you talk to each other all the time? Is that the best thing?
Yeah, as much as we can, and this lockdown's been a bit of a challenge for that, but I think everyone's getting used to doing things a little bit differently, but staying in communications, it's really important for these types of projects.
Carol asks, what's long life bait for rats, or are they just too smart?
Yeah, I think you need to keep it fresh for rats. Keep it fresh and as attractive as possible is probably the way to go.
Somebody's asking, do you use the AT220?
Yes, we do. Yeah, we've got quite a network of AT220s in our Zero Possum project, and it's been one of the things over the lockdown that's we've been quite happy about. The fact that we've got a self-resetting trap still working out there when we can't get out to service traps. So yeah, I think it's a trap with a lot of potential, and it's gonna help us in our projects, definitely.
Fantastic. Well, I think we've nearly come to the end of our questions. I mean, there'll be more potentially. And how can they contact you if they have something that's specific to your area?
Best way would be just to jump onto the Taranaki Regional Council website and find our project page there. That's got all our contact details or our Facebook page if you want to do that.
Just one question's come in, I've just seen. It's about leg hold traps, which would be good for you to answer for us. A person said, I don't like the sound of the leg hold trap for possums. Why not just use something that kills outright? What is the advantage of a leg hold trap? That's a pretty big question. Yeah,
it is a good question, and there's been a lot of study done on the efficiency of those traps, and the leg hold trap is by far the more efficient trap, and that's kind of why we have to use it, is because we know if we just use those kill traps where the possum has to put its head right up in and bite on something, then we're not going to get all the possums. So I see Tom from Zips putting some comments on there as well, and they've done a lot of this work to figure out what is the most effective way to make a possum barrier and what's the most effective trap to use for possums. And the leg hole trap at the moment just outperforms all the other traps by so much that we can't avoid the use of it. If we want to be aiming for zero, if we want to be trying to remove every possum, then we have to use the most efficient tool. That's pretty much the short answer.
Thanks so much, Toby. Fantastic work. It's lovely to have you on one of our webinars. Good luck with when you can, like the rest of us, get back out there in the field. We hope it's not too long. And what an amazing job you're doing there in the Taranaki, and thanks for sharing it with us.
Awesome.
For those people, no trouble. For those people who have given questions, we hope that we thank you and hope that we answered a few of them for you. And remember, like we said, we'll put this webinar up on our webpage, Predator Free New Zealand Trust webpage, along with the other webinars we have done so far. There's another one coming, I think, this Thursday. In the meantime, keep safe, everybody, in level 3, and thanks for being part of it. Thanks, Toby, very much.
Cheers.